painfully inadequate, that the government's Housing for All plan is about half of what is actually necessary to address this catastrophic crisis that is affecting hundreds of thousands of working people priced out of housing, paying unaffordable rents, or actually homeless, and that we need to double the housing output if we are to even have the remotest chance of addressing this housing crisis, which is now affecting the ability of the economy to grow. It is ratcheting up the cost of living, and it is imposing incredible housing misery on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Something we distinctly want to say in this regard is that if we are going to get up to the 60 or 70,000 houses a year necessary to have a chance of dealing with this housing crisis, we cannot rely on the private sector to do it, and that at least half of that target is going to have to be delivered directly by the state. And People Before Profit are unique in our housing proposals in saying that at least 35,000 houses a year, social and affordable, have to be delivered directly by the state, and that in order for that to happen, we need a state construction company. That is what the Apple money should be used for. To be honest, we wouldn't be in the mess that we were in now in terms of housing had the government collected the Apple money instead of operating a tax haven in this country. But now that they have been forced to take that money back because of the ruling of the European Court, that money should be used as seed capital for a state construction company and for a multi-annual programme to double or more than double the output of social and affordable housing in order to address the housing crisis. And we will be making that point very strongly at the Budget Scrutiny Committee and in the Dáil today. I also just want to highlight the private members' bill that People Before Profit are bringing before the Dáil on Thursday to do with special education and additional needs, and the really disgraceful failure of the government to address the crisis being faced by 110,000 children who are waiting for essential therapies, and the failure of the government to deliver those therapies having absolutely disastrous impacts on those children, on their families, and on the future life chances of those children. Compounded then by the lack of school places, the new allocation model for special education teachers, which means that a third of schools have actually lost special education resources, the chronic understaffing and under-resourcing of child and disability network teams and CAMS teams. So we have a whole series of proposals for urgent and emergency action to address the lack of school places, the lack of supports and resources for our most vulnerable children, and it'll be interesting to see how the government responds to that private member's motion. We'll have parents and teachers coming into the Dáil to hopefully put some pressure on this government to pass that motion on Thursday and take urgent and emergency action to assist children with additional needs and with disabilities. Very lastly, I just want to mention quickly what we saw Israel do in Lebanon with the exploding of these pagers, thousands of pagers, is an act of state terrorism, and it should be called as such. It shows that Israel has absolutely no red lines. They commit a genocidal massacre in Gaza that continues. They are committing war crimes on a daily basis, and now they engage in an act of state terrorism on an absolutely extraordinary scale, a terrifying scale. When you think this state is demonstrating that there are no red lines, what's next from this regime? So the world has to call this regime to account, and it really adds to the call that we've been making that we need more than just words of criticism or concern from our government or other governments. We need sanctions imposed on this terrorist rogue regime.
I want to start also by talking about the Central Bank quarterly bulletin. I think there's one story has emerged as a dominant story on this today, which is that you'd need 52,000 houses over 25 years, or a greater number over 10 years. But there is an other side to this story that, frankly, I think has been underreported today, and it's the issue that I wish to talk about. Because the Central Bank September Quarterly Bulletin is projecting that housing completions for 2000